Chapter 1. The Vegas Disaster. Mark Vale woke up to the blinding shimmer of gold-draped curtains and a chandelier that looked like it had been stolen from Versailles. His head pounded like a marching band, his mouth was dry, and worst of all, someone was breathing on his neck. He turned, praying to every god that it wasn't what he thought it was. There lay Kai Duskborne, his boss, the ruthless Enigma CEO feared by every corporate rival, and the exact man Mark wanted to strangle daily at work. Kai was shirtless, hair a mess, lips curved in the smuggest grin known to humankind. Mark blinked, then blinked again. His hand itched to throw the bedside lamp. On his finger gleamed a wedding band. "Oh, great," Mark muttered, voice dripping with sarcasm. "I got drunk and married my boss. Kill me now." Kai stretched like a cat who had just conquered Rome. "Correction," he said, voice smooth and annoyingly smug. "You married your fated mate. Destiny, sweetheart." Mark groaned and buried his head in the pillow. Destiny can bite me. Corporate life, back to business, or chaos. The next week at the company was an absolute nightmare. Mark tried, truly tried, to pretend nothing had happened. He wore his usual crisp suits, carried his clipboard, and fired sarcastic remarks at employees who couldn't file a report to save their lives. But the problem wasn't them. It was Kai. The once cold, terrifying Enigma CEO had turned into a puppy. A lovesick, clingy, ridiculously glowing puppy. At board meetings, instead of staring down investors with his icy glare, Kai would be staring at Mark like he hung the moon. In the office, instead of locking himself in his glass-walled executive suite, Kai was following Mark around like an overgrown shadow. "Sir, shouldn't you be running the empire?" Mark snapped one day, as Kai trailed him through the halls. Kai just smiled. "I am. You're the empire." Mark almost threw his coffee at him. The employees noticed. Oh, they noticed. The cold Enigma boss wagging his metaphorical tail every time his secretary breathed. Office gossip spread like wildfire. 2 months later, the twist, Mark thought things couldn't get worse. He was wrong. Because 2 months after that ill-fated Vegas night, Mark found himself in the company restroom, staring at a test strip that screamed pregnant. Pregnant. Him. An alpha. Mark's sarcastic brain short-circuited. Of course. Of course the universe looked at my life and thought, you know what would be funny? Let's make the alpha secretary knocked up with twins by his lunatic boss husband. He walked out pale, trying to act normal. It didn't work. His best friend and office co-worker, Milo, cornered him at the coffee machine. "Why do you look like someone told you Starbucks is closing down forever?" Mark shoved the report file into his chest. "Shut up." Milo, being Milo, snatched the crumpled test from Mark's pocket before he could stop him. There was silence. Milo blinked, then blinked again. Then Milo let out the loudest gasp of his life, followed by the brightest, most mischievous grin ever. "Oh my God. My bestie got knocked up. By the boss, by the Enigma. Mark, you're living a drama manhwa." Mark slapped a hand over his face. "I hate you. I hate him. I hate everyone." Milo was already bouncing, whisper shouting like a lunatic. Wait, does this mean I'm going to be the godparent of a mini Duskborns?" "Twins," Mark muttered, regretting everything. Mark knew he was carrying twins as he could feel it within himself, and his gut feeling is never, ever wrong. Milo's jaw dropped. "Twins? Oh my God, the office is going to explode." And explode it did, because within 3 days the rumor was everywhere. The sarcastic alpha secretary is pregnant. By the boss. With twins. Mark walked into the office the next morning to whispers, side eyes, and at least 3 people dropping their coffee cups. Kai, of course, was thrilled. "Don't listen to them, love," he whispered in Mark's ear, eyes glowing with that stupid soft look again. "You're carrying my heart, my future, my everything." Mark turned to him with his deadpan glare. "I'm carrying a hernia and regret." Kai only smiled brighter, wagging his metaphorical tail. Chapter 2. The Family Circus. Mark should have known. He should have known that marrying Kai Duskborne meant nothing would ever be simple again. For one, Kai insisted, no, demanded, that Mark come meet his family. Not as his secretary, not even as his accidental Vegas spouse, but as Kai's exact words, my beloved, glowing, irreplaceable spouse carrying my heirs. Mark had threatened to divorce him 5 times that morning alone. Kai only kissed his forehead each time and drove him straight to the Duskborne estate. The Duskborne Manor. The Duskborne residence wasn't just a house. It was a palace disguised as a mansion. Crystal fountains, gilded doors, enough marble to build a Greek temple. Mark felt like he'd walked onto the set of a pretentious period drama. The doors opened, and there she was. Eleanor Duskborne, mother of Kai. An elegant, dramatic, wrapped in diamonds. She swept down the staircase like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. Finally, Eleanor cried, arms wide open. I knew this day would come. Sit here, darling, you're glowing already. Before Mark could protest, Eleanor physically shoved him onto a velvet sofa and began fussing over him like he was porcelain. Victor Duskborne followed, Kai's father, stern-faced, but instead of judgment, he looked genuinely pleased. Our boys finally secured happiness, Victor declared, patting Kai's back with the pride of a man whose son just won a war. Mark muttered under his breath. Secured? More like blackmailed by fate and tequila. Eleanor gasped. Oh, he's sarcastic. I love him. Then came Amelia, Kai's cousin, camera already out. Smile, you two. I'm leaking this to the press. Don't you dare, Mark barked. Too late, Amelia smirked, already uploading. Meanwhile, Kai sat next to Mark, glowing like the world's happiest puppy. He hadn't looked this soft in years, and his family noticed. He's different, Victor whispered to Eleanor. He's in love, Eleanor said with a knowing smile. Mark, overhearing, buried his face in a pillow. Kill me now. By the end of the evening, Eleanor was planning Wedding 2.0, a luxury ceremony with swans, a 12-tier cake, and a diamond-encrusted nursery. Mark had never been more horrified in his life. Meeting the Vales. If the Duskborns were dramatic in their support, the Vales were dramatic in their roasting. Mark had dragged Kai to his childhood home, swearing this would end badly. He wasn't wrong. The moment they entered, his sister Nora nearly choked on her drink. You, married? To him? Grandma June, sprightly as ever at 80, gasped and waddled over. Oh my stars, is this the puppy? Kai blinked. Puppy? Yes, yes, my sweet puppy-in-law, Grandma June declared, patting his cheek. Look at those eyes. He's whipped. He'll never bite you, Marky. I approve. Kai lit up like a golden retriever handed a steak. Mark groaned. Grandma, he's not a puppy. He's a lunatic. Nora leaned against the wall, smirking. Funny coming from you. You're sarcastic, dramatic, and apparently fertile. Who knew? Shut up. The roasting didn't stop there. Dinner turned into a full interrogation. Nora teased him relentlessly. Grandma June kept calling Kai my good boy. And even Mark's mother side-eyed him like she'd just learned her son was living a soap opera. When Mark muttered, "This was all a mistake," Grandma June threw a bread roll at him. No takebacks. Puppies mate for life. Kai, of course, looked like he'd just ascended to heaven. Dignity? Never heard of it. By the time they left, Mark's dignity was in shreds. His family had roasted him to ashes. His grandmother had adopted Kai. And Kai himself had been praised more in one dinner than Mark had in his entire life. Kai leaned in as they got into the car, voice warm. See? They adore me. Mark crossed his arms, scowling. They adore puppies. You're just lucky you slobber less. Kai only grinned, leaned over, and kissed Mark's cheek. I'll take that as a compliment. Mark sighed. Fate really had it out for him. And with Wedding 2.0 looming on the horizon, things were about to get much worse. Chapter 3. The Marriage Trap. Mark had learned to expect 2 things from Kai. 1. Puppy-eyed devotion. 2. A level of manipulation that could probably start wars. So when Kai finally confessed one evening in his office, Mark was not surprised, only furious. The revelation. They were sitting in the executive suite, papers scattered across the mahogany desk. Mark was trying to finish quarterly reports while Kai sat across from him, chin propped on his palm, staring dreamily at his secretary husband like he was the world's only sunrise. Finally, Kai spoke. "Mark, there's something I should tell you about Vegas." Mark didn't even look up. "Oh, that you got drunk and ruined my life?" Kai's lips twitched. "Not exactly." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Do tell." With the guilt level of a man caught stealing cookies, Kai admitted, "Half of it wasn't entirely fate." Mark froze. "Explain, now." Kai gave him the softest smile, almost proud. "I may have arranged the seating at that casino bar, and possibly ensured the bartender kept refilling your glass, and..." Flashback hit. Flashback, Vegas night. Kai had followed Mark to the casino bar after a long conference disguised in casual clothes. He'd bribed the bartender to keep Mark's drinks flowing. He'd accidentally suggested the chapel next door when Mark, tipsy and sarcastic, ranted about how he'd rather marry the devil than deal with another board meeting. Kai had dragged Mark to that ridiculous neon-lit wedding chapel, signed the papers and, without hesitation, marked him in the heat of drunken chaos, and then they consummated in Kai's mansion there. Back in the present, Kai leaned back smugly. "See, destiny just needed a little push." Mark's jaw dropped. "So you drugged fate?" Kai, glowing like a proud golden retriever. "I simply gave destiny a little nudge." Mark slapped a hand over his face. "You're insane." Kai leaned forward, whispering like it was romantic. "Insanely in love." Mark wanted to scream, or strangle him, or both. Wedding 2.0, luxury chaos. Because Eleanor Duskborne refused to let their Vegas marriage be the only ceremony, a lavish luxury wedding 2.0 was arranged. Swans, chandeliers, 12-layer cake, reporters circling like vultures. Mark stood at the altar, muttering under his breath, "I should have just stayed single. I could have adopted a cat." Nora, sitting in the front row, shouted, "Too late, you adopted a lunatic with $1 billion empire." Grandma June threw rice at him prematurely. "Smile, Marky. Your puppy looks like he's about to cry." Kai, of course, looked radiant, practically wagging his tail as he recited vows about eternal devotion. By the time he kissed Mark, reporters were already snapping pictures like it was the royal wedding. Chaos only escalated when a couple of Mark's exes popped in, glaring daggers. Kai? He handled it by glaring colder daggers back, until one of them fled the hall crying. Eleanor called it romantic. Amelia live-streamed half the ceremony with captions like, "My cousin finally bagged his alpha secretary" and "Twins incoming LOL." Mark was seconds from fainting. Honeymoon disaster. After the circus, Kai whisked Mark away on what he dramatically called an extravagant honeymoon. Basically, a private island with no one around but them, a staff of 5, and an overbearing private doctor on standby. Mark had been 1 month pregnant, still sarcastic, still grumpy. Kai? Overprotective. Too overprotective. Kai cornered the doctor. "Can we, make love? I mean, if it's safe for him?" The doctor adjusted his glasses, deadpan. "As long as you don't overdo it." Mark, eavesdropping, nearly spat out his drink. "Excuse me." Kai just beamed, tail wagging in his metaphorical world. "See, darling? Doctor approved." Mark groaned. "I'm filing for divorce." Kai pulled him into his arms. "File all you want. I'll frame the papers." And thus, their peaceful honeymoon was full of laughter, banter, and way too much destiny-approved lovemaking, as Kai called it. Amelia's betrayal. Of course, peace never lasted. Because Amelia somehow still had ways of getting pictures. The private island wasn't as private as Kai thought. One morning, Mark woke up to Milo's text message, all caps. "BRO, the internet has your honeymoon photos. Why are you making out on a yacht? Why is your boss husband carrying you bridal style? Why is there a heart-shaped swan float?" Mark nearly screamed. He pulled up the headlines. Enigma CEO's alpha husband, pregnant and glowing in honeymoon photos. Kai Duskborne, billionaire puppy in love. Mark turned to Kai, who was sipping coffee calmly. Your cousin is dead. Kai smiled. At least they used your good angle. Mark groaned into his pillow while Kai kissed his temple, utterly unbothered. The circus wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was only getting started. Chapter 4. Pregnant with twins and hell to pay. 6 months had passed since the Vegas disaster, wedding 2.0, and the leaked yacht photos. Mark Vale was now a married man, 6 months pregnant with twins, and the reluctant center of a soap opera that half the country tuned into daily via Amelia's accidental leaks. And somehow, life was both peaceful and chaotic at the same time. Married life. The Vale Duskborne household. The mornings began with Kai practically gluing himself to Mark in bed. Mark, eyes barely open, would groan, "If you touch me, I'll strangle you. Also, rub my back, it hurts." Kai would immediately start massaging his back like the world's most obedient puppy, eyes glowing. "Anything for you, love." Mark, "I hate how good you are at this." Kai, "You love me." Mark, "I tolerate you." Their house had turned into a mix of luxury and absurdity. Kai had bought an entire wing of a private hospital and converted part of their estate into a maternity-safe environment, just in case. The fridge was always stacked with Mark's cravings: ice cream, fried pickles, obscure snacks from foreign countries. Eleanor dropped by weekly with baby clothes. Victor gave security lectures about protecting the heirs. Grandma June knitted sweaters with Puppy Daddy stitched across the front. Mark threatened to burn them all. Corporate life, the fearsome duo. Despite his pregnancy, Mark refused to stop working. At 5 months along, he waddled into the boardroom in sharp suits, throwing sarcasm like knives. Investors quaked, executives prayed, even pregnant Mark was ruthless. And Kai? He remained the terrifying ice enigma to the outside world, cold, calculating, merciless in negotiations. Rivals who dared question him got shredded in minutes. But the second his eyes flicked to Mark, his entire demeanor melted. If Mark coughed once, Kai would halt meetings to check if he needed water. The board quickly learned, never mess with the pregnant secretary husband unless you wanted to be destroyed by 2 monsters at once. Rumors in the corporate world turned into legends. They weren't just a CEO and his secretary anymore. They were the Vale Duskborne duo. Feared, respected, unstoppable. Milo's commentary. The real chaos, however, came from Milo, who had taken it upon himself to narrate Mark's pregnancy like a sports commentator. At lunch one day, Milo leaned against his cubicle, speaking into a stapler like it was a microphone. And here comes Mark Vale, entering week 24. His sarcasm levels are off the charts today, folks. Watch as he eviscerates an intern with just one glare. Yes, he did it. The intern is crying. Mark threw a pen at him. "I hope you trip on your own shoelaces." Milo grinned. "Hormones, everyone. Truly magnificent." Even Kai got caught in the commentary. Milo. "Here comes the Enigma CEO, carrying 3 shopping bags of pregnancy pillows. What a devoted husband, ladies and gentlemen. Truly a gold medal performance in the Puppy Olympics." Kai, without shame, bowed. "Thank you, I train daily." Mark nearly screamed. Tsundere in love. Despite all his dramatics, sarcasm, mood swings, threats of strangulation, Mark couldn't deny it anymore. Kai wasn't just a lunatic enigma. He was soft. Ridiculously, hopelessly soft when it came to him. Mark noticed it in the little things. How Kai remembered exactly how he liked his tea. How he'd kneel and talk to Mark's stomach every night, whispering promises to their twins. How his terrifying glare toward the world instantly vanished the second Mark so much as frowned. One evening, Mark caught Kai sitting on the nursery floor, surrounded by tiny clothes, holding a pair of baby socks like they were priceless jewels. Mark leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You're ridiculous." Kai looked up, cheeks pink. "I'm in love." Mark rolled his eyes, but his heart squeezed. He walked over, sat beside him, and muttered, I don't hate you as much as I used to." Kai's grin could have powered the entire city. Peaceful chaos. Their life was far from quiet. Between family meddling, Milo's constant commentary, and Amelia's never-ending leaks, chaos was the daily soundtrack of their marriage. But amidst the sarcasm, banter, and drama, there was also peace, a strange, warm peace Mark never thought he'd have. Yes, his husband was insane. Yes, he was carrying twins that kicked like tiny demons. Yes, his dignity was in shreds. But when Kai kissed his temple every night, whispering, "Sleep, love. I'll protect you and them with everything I have," Mark found himself smiling despite himself. Because maybe, just maybe, he was starting to love his lunatic puppy. Chapter 5. Twins, Tears, and a Chaotic Happy Ending. Mark had never experienced true hell before. Sure, he'd been married against his will in Vegas. Sure, he'd been saddled with a lunatic Enigma husband. Sure, his cousin-in-law had turned his life into reality TV with accidental leaks. But nothing, compared to the chaos of giving birth to twins. The hospital invasion. It began at 3 a.m. when Mark's water broke. Kai, bolting upright like a soldier under attack. "Are you dying? Who hurt you? Where's the doctor?" Mark, "I'm in labor, you idiot." Kai, "We are having babies? Now?" Kai proceeded to panic so thoroughly he nearly carried Mark bridal style into the wrong car, until Mark smacked him with a pillow and ordered him to get it together, puppy CEO. By the time they reached the private hospital wing Kai had purchased months ago, complete with golden elevators and staff on 24-hour alert, the families had already arrived. Because of course Amelia had somehow known. Grandma June stormed in with knitting needles like weapons. Eleanor brought champagne. Victor shouted about protecting the heirs. Milo showed up with popcorn and a camcorder. "Ladies and gentlemen," Milo narrated as nurses pushed Mark toward delivery, "our star player Mark Vale has entered the final trimester showdown. Odds are against him, but his sarcasm has never been sharper. Look at that glare. Yes, he just threatened to murder his husband." Mark screamed from the bed, "I swear I'll strangle you all after this." Kai's breakdown. Kai, for once, was not the cool-headed CEO. He hovered over Mark's bed, pacing like a caged wolf, demanding hourly updates from doctors, bribing nurses mid-contraction. "Doctor, sir, we're already doing everything." Kai, "Do more. Triple-check the oxygen levels, reinforce the IV stand. Build another hospital if you have to." Mark, drenched in sweat, hissed, "Kai, shut up." Kai immediately sat down, grabbed his hand, and whispered, "Sorry, love. You can crush my fingers if you need to." Mark did, and nearly broke them. Family circus in the waiting room. Meanwhile, outside, the waiting room was pure pandemonium. Eleanor was already decorating with balloons. Victor interrogated hospital security like he was planning a war campaign. Amelia live-streamed updates under the tag hash Vale Duskborne airs, until Grandma June snatched her phone and bonked her with a cane. Milo was still narrating like it was the Olympics. Milo, "Contractions are hitting hard, folks. Our tsundere alpha is giving the performance of his life. Meanwhile, puppy husband is crying like it's a romance drama finale. Truly inspirational." The twins arrive. Hours later, after enough screaming, sarcasm, and hand-squeezing to scar Kai for life, the sound of newborn cries filled the room. Twin girls. Tiny, perfect, healthy. Kai immediately burst into tears, kissing Mark's sweaty forehead. "You did it, love. You gave me everything." Mark groaned, exhausted. "Don't cry on me, idiot. You'll drown the babies." Kai only laughed, holding both infants like they were made of starlight. "They're perfect, just like you." Mark, still sarcastic, even half-conscious. "If they inherit your stupidity, I'm putting them up for adoption." The confession. Later that night, when the chaos finally calmed, the family's gone home, or forcibly removed, and Milo banned from bringing commentary into the nursery, Mark lay in bed, babies nestled beside him. Kai sat close, watching them, like he'd never seen beauty before. Mark stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. "You're ridiculous." Kai looked at him, startled. Mark rolled his eyes, cheeks flushing. I said you're ridiculous, but you're my ridiculous and I love you, puppy. Kai froze. His mouth opened, closed. Then he promptly burst into even more tears. Mark groaned. If you cry again, I'll regret this. Kai kissed him, trembling, whispering like it was sacred. I love you too, always, forever. Epilogue. Peaceful chaos. Life with twins was not peaceful. There were sleepless nights, diaper explosions, Amelia's nonstop gossip blogs, Milo's commentary evolving into baby Olympics, and boardrooms that now doubled as daycare. But strangely, it was perfect. Mark, once a grumpy secretary stuck with a lunatic boss, had somehow ended up with a family, a home, and a puppy husband who would tear down the world for him. And though he'd never admit it out loud too often, Mark wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even his dignity. Happy? Chaotic? Perfect. The Vale Duskborne family had officially begun.